العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
طيب، إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. طيب, we stopped off at Bab al-Fidya. I believe we stopped at Bab al-Fidya, which is the expiation for falling into those things that are haram for the muhrim to do. Like, if we go a chapter back, let's briefly look at the mahdhurat al-ihram, those things that are impermissible for the person who is in ihram to do. So we'll have a quick look at those things that the Shaykh rahimahullah mentions that are haram for the person that is in a state of ihram to do. Then we'll move over to Bab al-Fidya, expiating of the expiation that person does if he falls into something that is muharram, because the two are connected. The Shaykh says rahimahullah, وَيَجْتَنِبُ الْمُحْرِمُ وَقْتَ إِحْرَامِهِ, and the muhrim, the person who is in a state of ihram, stays away from, during the time of ihram, halq al-sha'r, the trimming of the hair, or the cutting, or the shaving of the hair, removing any hair from the body, removing any hair from the body. So that's the first mahdhur that a person cannot do. That is the first mahdhur, or the first thing that a person should stay away from. And the evidence for that is the statement of Allah Jalla wa Ala, وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ الْهَدْيُ مَحِلَّهُ. And also the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded one of the companions, Ka'b ibn Ujra, to shave or to do the fidya that we're going to mention in a minute, the slaughtering of a sheep, due to him shaving his head after he had lice, or he had some sort of illness that required him to shave his head, required him to shave his hair. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowed him to do so, like he was commanded to do the kafara, the expiation. Right. One may ask, why did the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam allow him then, if he was still going to do the kafara? The reason is because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving him permission removes him being blameworthy, removes the sin. Lakin he still has to do the kafara. So the first one is halq al-sha'r, taqlim al-adfar, the clipping or the trimming of the nails. So it's haram, it is not permissible for the person who is in a state of ihram to trim their nails. طيب. So it's not permissible for them to trim their nails. Lakin if they accidentally break their nail and then they are forced to cut it off, then that is fine and they won't have to do a kafara for that. And the evidence for that is qiyas on the hair of the sha'r. Qiyas on the hair of the sha'r. Qiyas of the hair of the sha'r. The third one, وَلُبْسَ الْمَخِيطِ إِنْ كَانَ رَجُلًا, and for the men, wearing stitched clothing. So I don't know if you remember, like before the break we talked about ihram, or those things that are not permissible. There are things that are specific to men that men can't do, like women can do. For example, the covering of the head. Men are not allowed to cover their head, like in women, it's wajib for them to still have the ihram on. Then there are things that are impermissible for the women. Then there are things that are impermissible for both of them. And we shall see, for example, the putting on atar, or perfume. وَلُبْسَ الْمَخِيطِ إِنْ كَانَ رَجُلًا. طيب, wearing something that has been shaped in the form of the body. That is what is impermissible for the men. That is what is impermissible for the men. So for example, wearing a hat, wearing a thobe, wearing a izar, trousers, wearing trousers or shorts or any underclothing, socks, all of these are impermissible for the muhrim to wear. So when they start the ihram, men are required to use the ihram, the two white garments, for the bottom half of the body and the top half of the body. And the evidence for that is the long hadith where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said لا تلبسوا القميص ولا السراويلات ولا العمائم ولا البرانس إلا أن يكون أحد ليست له نعلان إلى آخر الحديث. So do not wear, the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم said al-qamis, do not wear a shirt or a upper garment, and do not wear the sarawilat, trousers, ولا العمائم, do not wear turbans, ولا البرانس, baranis are the Moroccan kind of, like the Bob is wearing, the Moroccan kind of thobe, or the overgarment. طيب. ولا تلبسوا شيئا مما زعفران, لكن that's for the next مسألة. طيب, so that's the third one. ولبس المخيط. So some people believe that they can't wear anything that has stitching in it. Like, and that is not the meaning behind ولبس المخيط. طيب, that is not the meaning behind it. And ولبس المخيط, that wording, if I remember correctly, is the wording of Imam al-Nakhai rahimahullah ta'ala. He's the one that initiated or mentioned this wording of لبس المخيط. Lakin the hadiths are a lot more general. Lakin he, radiallahu anhu, rahmatullahi alayhi, what they do, takhrij al-manat, so he took, after looking in the hadith, he looked at what it was, and the reason why it was impermissible for men to wear these qamis, the sarawilat, and the amaim, and all of these sorts of things. So for example, what about a belt? Is a person allowed to wear a belt for the ihram? No. طيب, so on the matan, the Shaykh doesn't mention rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'a the niqab. For the women, it's not permissible for them to wear the niqab as it is. They can cover their face, but they're not allowed to wear the niqab. And there's a difference, because the niqab, it goes around the head. That is what is impermissible. As for covering their head, their face afron, then they can do so with any other garment that they put all over the head. Also the khufazain, they're not allowed to wear the gloves, and they're not allowed to wear gloves. So with regards to women, there's no other type of ihram that they have to wear in terms of clothing, as long as they can wear their normal clothes. Obviously they have to wear the hijab, they can wear socks, shoes, just like they would normally do. وتغطية رأسه إن كان رجلا, and the covering of the head for the man. The covering of the head, that is number what? Number 4. It can include the gloves and the niqab and the gloves. So that's about 6 or 7. وتغطية رأسه إن كان رجلا, and the covering of the head for the men. And the evidence for that is the ijma' of Ahlul Ilm, that it's not permissible for men to cover their head. So for men it's permissible to cover their face. There's a difference between the covering of the face and the covering of the head. It's permissible to cover your face, like not permissible to cover your head. So when a person is in a state of ihram and they're in Mina and they're sleeping, or when they're in a state of ihram and they're sleeping, even if it's the hotel that they're in, they shouldn't cover their head with the ihram or any other sheets or quilts. والطيبة رجلا وامرأة. رجلا وامرأة, يعني كان رجلا وامرأة. So it's not also, or the 7th one or the 8th one is at-tib, atar, using perfume whilst in a state of ihram. When they were at the miqat, what did we say the muhrim has to do, or the hajj or the mu'tamir has to do, the person performing hajj or umrah? When they're at the miqat, you do ghusl, cutting the hair, trimming the nails, and atar, na'am. So they clean themselves at the miqat. Now when they're starting the ihram, or when they're cleaning themselves, they can put it on their body. They shouldn't put it on their clothing, lakin they should put it on their body. That's important. They should put it on their body, or they're allowed to put it on their body. And then they put the ihram on. Then should they carry on when they are in a state of ihram, if they can smell the adar off them, the perfume off themselves, that's fine, because they did not put the adar on whilst in a state of ihram. Lakin the person shouldn't put it on his ihram. Although technically you're outside of ihram, or you haven't started ihram, like in these clothes, the scholars say when you take it off, like when you take the ihram off and then you put it back on again in a state of ihram, is as if you've put it on with atar. طيب. نعم. So the evidence for that is the hadith where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَلَا تُحَنِّطُوهُ وَلَا تُخَمِّرُوا رَأْسَهُ فَإِنَّهُ يُبْعَثُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. نعم. Where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the man that fell off his camel and he died in a state of ihram, the Messenger said, do not use sidr or za'faran on him. نعم. Also the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَلَا تَلْبَسُوا شَيْئًا مَسَّهُ الزَّعَفَرَانُ وَلَا الْوَرْسُ. And do not wear anything that the za'faran, which is a type of perfume, do not wear anything that it has touched. No. What about shampoo and soap? Huh? Who says it's allowed? Put your hand up if you say it's allowed. Shampoo and soap, hand washes. Who says it's allowed? Put your hand up. Who says it's not allowed? No comment. Huh? La. Even if it is scented, you're allowed to put it on. The shampoo, the hand washes, the shampoos. Why? Because that's just a fragrance. It's not perfume. It's not perfume. So, for example, a person uses shampoo. You can say he put perfume on. La. If you're using hand wash, you're not going to say I put perfume on, even if there's a slight fragrance. So that is permissible. طيب. وكذا يحرم على المحرم قتل صيد البر الوحشي المأكول والدلالة عليه والإعانة عليه. طيب. Also hunting is impermissible. It is from the محظورات of the shara, of the محظورات of the ihram. لكن what did the Shaykh say? قتل الصيد البر, hunting animals that live on land. What do we take from that? Derive from there what? What's the mafhum of that? The understanding of that? In the sea, na'am. So you're allowed to what? In the sea you're allowed to fish. You're allowed to fish. طيب. نعم. طبعا جزء الفرس of Allah جل وعلا وحرم عليكم صيد البر ما دمتم حرما وحرم عليكم صيد البر. نعم. The prohibited is the land game. طيب. البري الوحشي. الوحشي, the wild animals. What does that exclude? Trained animal, domestic, sheep and so on. طيب. Because you don't hunt them anyway. You're not hunted. المأكول. What is the meaning of المأكول? أي يمكن أكله. It is permissible to eat. Inshallah, during the end of the kitab, we're going to get to Bab al-At'imah. That which you can eat, that which you can't eat. And from those that you can't eat is a siba', for example, wild tigers and lions and these sorts of animals, bears, these sorts of animals we can't eat. These sorts of animals we can't eat because they're predators. طيب. So that is permissible to hunt. وَالدَّلَالَةُ عَلَيْهِ, and pointing towards it, or directing someone, or instructing someone and saying there's a zebra over there that you can hunt, or there's an animal that you can hunt over there. طيب. وَالْإِعَانَةُ عَلَى قَتْلِهِ, and also to help in killing this, or to help in hunting this animal, even if it means throwing the arrow towards the person that hunted. And that happened with Abu Qatadah, the Sahaba Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhim. They were in a state of ihram, and some of the companions were with him who were, Abu Qatadah wasn't in a state of ihram, like some of the companions were in a state of ihram. طيب. Lakin, so he saw something that he could hunt, an animal that he could hunt. So Abu Qatadah radiyallahu anhu, rahmatullahi alayhi, he asked them to pass him the bow, and they refused. So he went down, got it, and then he hunted it. When the messenger saw, when he bought the animal and then they cooked it, they ate some of it. Like, and they said, are we not muhrimin? Why are we eating it? They went to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked them, did you help him in doing so? And they said, la. Then he said, eat whatever is left of it. So it's not permissible to hunt it, and it's not permissible to point towards it, or to help someone, in catching it. طيب. وأعظم محظورات الإحرام الجماع لأنه مغلظ تحريمه. الآن, right now, so don't get lost. Right now we're talking about those things that are haram. The next chapter we're going to talk about what you should do if you fall into these things that are haram, the expiation for it. طيب. So the Shaykh says, وَأَعْظَمُ مَحْظُورَاتِ الْإِحْرَامِ الْجِمَاعِ. So the greatest or the gravest sin when it comes to the mahdurat, those things that are impermissible in Hajj, is sexual intercourse. لماذا؟ لأنه مغلظ تحريمه. Why? Because its tahrim, its impermissibility has been intensified. And we shall see the reason why. Or we shall see the reason why the Shaykh said مغلظ, why it has been intensified. Due to the kafara and due to the fact that it nullifies a person's Hajj. لماذا? He says, the Shaykh says رحمه الله تعالى وتحريمه مفسد للنسك موجب للفدية بدنه. So he says رحمه الله, why is al-jima' the worst or the worst of the mahdurat? The Shaykh says مفسد أي هو مفسد, it is a mufsid, it nullifies the nusuk وموجب لفدية بدنه. And it also requires that a person slaughters an animal as an expiation, a camel as an expiation. A camel as an expiation. So if a person falls into that act in a state of ihram, the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, it nullifies the hajj, the nusuk. Lakin, we have to split it into two, or categorize it into two. You should remember something which was called at-tahallul al-awwal and at-tahallul al-thani. What is at-tahallul al-awwal?
Exiting of first ihram.
Excellent. Exiting of the first ihram. A partial exiting of the ihram. Abdullah, the thani? When you've completed it. طيب. How can you partially complete your ihram?
After you complete the ram.
The ram, نعم. And halq. بس نعم. حلق وتقصير and رمي. So when you come into Mina on the 10th day, and you throw the jamarat, and then you carry on, and then you trim your hair, that's called tahallul al-awwal. That's a partial exiting. طيب. That is the cutoff point that we want here for this categorization that we're going to go into now. So if a person falls into this act on the 8th day, after obviously starting his niyyah, the ihram, or the 9th day, meaning Yawm Arafah, or on the 10th day, before doing the jamarat and before the trimming or the shaving of their hair. If a person does an intercourse at that time, then their hajj is fasid. There's 5 things. So write this down. If a person falls into this act on the 8th day, eighth day, 9th day, or 10th day, just after the 10th day, write in brackets before shaving the hair and before throwing the stones, the pebbles. So you've written that. Say, or write, upon him is, number 1, fasad al-hajj, his hajj is nullified. Number 1, his hajj is nullified. Number 2, wujub itmamihi, and it is wajib to complete the hajj. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, and complete the hajj and the umrah lillah, for Allah Jalla wa Ala. طيب, that's the second one. So the hajj is nullified, meaning it won't be accepted. The second is wujub al-itmam. It is wajib that the person completes the hajj, carries on. So they don't say, since I've done this, my hajj is not accepted, I'm going to go home from this point onwards. La. It is wajib that they finish it. The third thing is wujub al-fidya. It is wajib that they slaughter a camel. Number 4, al-qada, that they make it up. That they make it up. طيب. That is what? التحلل الأول, before التحلل الأول. Write another title. If they fall into this act, after the first tahallul, upon them is, and then write number 1. Upon them is, and then write number 1, at-tawbah, the first one. Carrying on with the Hajj, obviously, because their Hajj is not nullified. And thirdly, slaughtering a sheep. Slaughtering sheep. طيب. Also, one of the how many mahdurat have we mentioned now? Things that are not permissible for the muhrim. About 8 now. 8. The 9th one is an-nikah. 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 So it's not permissible for a person in a state of ihram to marry or to give away the person that he's a wali of.
So if you separate the niqab and the gloves, are they separate or are they part of one?
لا, separate them, the niqab and the gloves.
So that makes it 10 then.
طيب. طيب. And the evidence for that is the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا ينكح المحرم ولا ينكح ولا يخطب. The muhrim does not yankih, does not get married, do a nikah contract, ولا يخطب, and doesn't ask, or he doesn't arrange it. طيب. So that is the mahdurat. Babul fidya, the next bab is babul fidya. If you fall into any of these things that we've mentioned now, then the Shaykh is now going to tell us what a person should do. Number 1, وَأَمَّا فِدْيَةُ الْأَذَى. Fidyatul adha is the expiation of adha when a person falls into those mahdurat, those things that are impermissible during state of Hajj. Lakin, first write down the fidya or expiation is of 4 types. 4 types. The first is that which there is no fidya, that there is no expiation. So you don't have to slaughter an animal, and that is nikah. That is nikah. So a person just refrains from it, and that nikah is batil, they need to do it again. So that is the first type of expiation, fidya. The second, what's the first? Nikah. Would you have to, how many sheep do you have to slaughter? 0. نعم. ثاني ما فديته مغلظة. That which the fidya or the expiation has been made dear or severe, and that is al-jima'. When we already said what that person should do. The third is fidyatul adha, and that's the one he's going to delve into now, rahimahullah ta'ala. And that is the trimming of the hair, the trimming of the nails, the cutting of the hair or trimming of the hair. Naam. The Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَأَمَّا فِدْيَةُ الْأَدَاءِ إِذَا غَطَّى رَأْسَهُ, if the person covers his head. غَطَّى رَأْسَهُ. So if the man or the woman cover their head, then they have to what? If the man or the woman cover their head, they have to what? Huh? Slaughter sheep. So if the women wear a hijab, they have to slaughter sheep. لا, pay attention. No, pay attention. إذا قطع رأسه, يعني if the man covers his head. أو لبس المخيط, or he wears a makhid, which is a type of garment that is any type of garment that is cut out in the shape of the body. In the shape of the body. أو غضت المرأة وجهها, or if a woman covers her face. أو لبست الغفازين, or she wears the غفازين, gloves. أو استعمال الطب, أو استعمال الطيب, or applies عطر or perfume. طيب. The Shaykh says فيخير بين, then that person has got a choice between بين الصيام ثلاثة أيام. So يخير, he is given an option, meaning he could do any of these three, whichever is easier for him. So there is no particular order. صيام ثلاثة أيام, fasting 3 days, the fasting of 3 days. أو إطعام ستة مساكين, or feeding 6 poor people. And we shall see that they should be the people of Mecca. أو ذبح شاة, or the slaughtering of a shat, the slaughtering of a shat, of a sheep. So if a person does any of those things that we've just mentioned, the covering of the head, wearing of a thobe, or a woman covers her face, or wears the ghufazain, or استعمال الطيب, then the expiation of the kafara is one of 3 things. What are these 3 things? Fast 3 days, 6 masakin, or the slaughter of sheep. طيب. Then the Shaykh says, وَإِذَا قَتَلَ الصَّيْدَ, and if he hunts and kills a game whilst in a state of ihram, خُيِّرَ بَيْنَ, he is given an option between ذَبْحِ مِثْلِهِ إِنْ كَانَ لَهُ مِثْلٍ, slaughtering the like of it if it has a like. If it has a like. And the Sahaba Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhim, they from their ijtihad, there were certain animals that if they were killed, that they said that is the like of it. So for example, a zebra, then a person would have to slaughter a cow. If a person, if a hyena was slaughtered, or if the person hunted a hyena, then a sheep, a male sheep, a ram would be commanded to be a mithl, or something which is equivalent to it. Likewise, a ghazal, or if a deer was hunted, then a goat would be the equal to it. So this is the ijtihad of the Sahaba Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhim. Or if a rabbit was to be hunted, then a young female goat would be the like of it. So their fidya would be that they would pay the price of a sheep or a goat or so on, depending on the ijtihad of the Sahaba of what they made the method of. So that's the first one. If a person hunts, then they slaughter the like or the equivalent of that which they slaughtered, that which they hunted. طيب. من النعم. من النعم طبعا, those things, whether it's the sheep or the camels, depending on what was the equivalent to it. So that's the first one. وبين, so he's still got the khiyar. Either slaughter something which is similar to it, if it has a similar or similar animal to it, then that is the wajib that they slaughter. وبين تقويم المثل بمحل الإتلاف, or paying its equivalent. Paying its equivalent. How? فيشتري به طعاما. So the person, مثلا, if they were meant to slaughter a sheep, they فيشتري به, they buy the value of that sheep. So for example, they say, how much is a sheep? A sheep in Mecca is probably about 400 riyals. A sheep is probably 400 riyals. فيشتري به طعاما, he buys the equivalent to that of food. The equivalent of what? For the 400 of food. فَيُطْعِمُهُ, and then he gives it to the مساكين. لكل مسكين مد بر أو نصف صاع من غيره. طيب. So that is the second option. The second option is what? Instead of slaughtering the animal, you slaughter what? The value of it. Or you get the value of it money-wise, and you buy food. And you buy food. That's the second option.